An intellectual carrot, the mind boggles.
You see? You see? Your stupid minds. Stupid! Stupid!
Earth has had Santa Claus long enough. We will bring him to Mars.
I've been afraid a lot of times in my life, but I didn't know the real meaning of fear until I kissed Becky.
One thing will be clear. It's not for man to interfere in the ways of God.
It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Earth vs. Soup, episode 133. I'm Aaron Pollier.
And I'm Darlene.
We haven't recorded in a while, at least to us. It's felt a little bit long since we've recorded because we've been doing World War II reenacting, and so haven't had a chance to watch many movies recently. So Darlene got to choose a science fiction movie.
And I even found it in YouTube.
Yeah, it's free on YouTube. It's free for a reason.
It's The Flying Serpent from 1946. It's 59 minutes long. It was also known as Killer with Wings. It was telecast to WCBS in New York on Saturday, February 5th, 1949.
It's one of the first times a movie that was released theatrically was then shown on television.
And it resembled to the movie The Bat Devil.
The Devil Bat.
The Devil Bat. Sorry, I read that backwards. 1940s movie. And it was remade loosely in 1982 as Q or Q the Winged Serpent.
Okay, I have things to say about this movie before we start. This is 59 minutes. And like so many of these very, very cheap films, this movie could easily... And normally I say, oh, well, it could...
I don't know if it was cheap.
I normally say it could fit into like an hour TV movie with commercials. I'm not saying that with this film. This film could be a half-hour television show with commercials.
Well, if you cut out all the pieces that they recopied.
Yeah. See, here's the thing about this movie. You watch it, and everything seems to happen twice.
3 times in some.
3 times in some. And in fact, there are times where, like the first part of the movie, the first act, so to speak, is completely explained again in a trial in Act 2. Detail by detail, except for the fact that we as viewers know more than the people explaining things on the screen. So it becomes even further worthless to us, being that we know all the secrets already. No one else does, and you're explaining it to us again, a faulty story again.
I have at least 3 times that a car going to the ruins as the same footage. And then there is about 4 times you see the same footage with the Quetzalcoatl.
It's not even just
flying.
It's not just reusing the same footage. It's showing something, explaining it again, then the exact same thing happens again to a different person, and then it's explained again.
But so, I was actually physically, there are
there's
pieces
just totally
of this
repeated
movie.
Shots. In fact, it's so bad that I actually don't even want to try to explain the plot, but I will. Can I also say that it didn't only feel like a half-hour television show, a television episode with commercials that you could put it down to. This almost felt like a serial played before a movie that was taped together because it repeats so much. They have to assume that the viewers haven't seen the last 15 minutes.
You mean like Flash Gordon?
That they have to repeat everything over and over and over and over again. So there's only one real plot point every 20 minutes or so. Because there's only really 3 plot points in this. There's 3 actual occurrences that happen.
Other thing that I'm going to put out as something that I didn't like was there was a difference in the size of Quetzalcoatl in the cage versus out in the mountains flying, and when it attacks somebody. The attack something looks like a kite.
You say that, and I'm going to say the thing the thing that's flying around in this movie outside works.
It works, yes.
Is it good? Absolutely not. I will not make that argument.
The thing that I'm saying that doesn't work is the size variation constant. Is not constant.
I would say that it doesn't. It's very difficult to tell what size it is unless it's attacking somebody outside. Like when it's in the cave, it's really tough to see actually how big it is because it's always filmed in shadow. Smart, right? It's always behind bars, so it's never really directly interacting with the people on the other side of the bars. Again, smart. There's some smart things that are done in this, but it makes it difficult. Now, you think it's bigger in the cave, correct?
I think it's bigger in the cave and when it's flying than when it attacks somebody. Because what looks like it attacks is smaller than even a vulture.
And I'm saying that you can't really tell how big it is when it's flying because it's in the air and there's nothing to gauge it against.
There's the mountains behind it.
Sure, but then it could be really far away and close to those mountains and be 1,000 feet wide. Or it could be...
It just didn't look like...
To me, I didn't.
All three of them didn't look like the same thing.
Okay,
either.
And that's fair enough. I don't. I disagree, but that's fine. That's fine. It's okay to disagree. There are things that work. We're gonna bitch though. We're gonna bitch about this movie because, it's frustrating. The guy who directed this is a guy named Sam Newfield. Now, if you look up this movie on Internet Movie Database and click on Sam Newfield, you will realize that this man did hundreds of movies as the director. Hundreds. Sometimes 8 to 10 to 12 movies every year.
But are they chunts?
Oh, they're all crap. That's the thing. He made so many movies. He directed so many movies that he had to use 2 other pseudonyms. So people would not realize he made all of these films. In fact, it seems like he might have been the only director for this PRC studio for certain years. That he was the only person to ever direct films coming out of this studio for given years.
But they got George Zucco.
He's the only actor that I recognize in it.
Because he's a British actor.
Yeah.
He did Professor Moriarty in 1932, and he was in The House of Frankenstein.
Yeah, he's in House of Frankenstein. That's where we notice him from.
We haven't watched it yet.
I know him from House of Frankenstein because I've seen House of Frankenstein.
He's in Sherlock Holmes things more than once. One as Moriarty and another as somebody else.
Yeah, I mean we've seen him in different things, Darlene. We've seen him in different things.
So it's not like he got a cheap actor. Maybe it was cheap at the time. I don't know.
All right, so maybe we should talk about this movie. Let's talk about the plot. It's very confusing at first.
Do you got the first opening line
I do.
for line?
There's a title cards near the little city of San Juan, New Mexico. Stands Aztec ruins. They buried treasure there to avoid Cortez. And it goes
Montezuma.
Montezuma buried treasure there, etc., etc. And we see George Zucco driving an old Studebaker or something like that, which it looked fine. That's fine. But we see this shot like a dozen times in this movie.
Yes, we do.
And I am suddenly taken out of the movie.
Because there's a big, huge...
there is a giant Aztec temple that would be like a World Heritage Site in our world. Like, it's crazy.
It's got to be in a different world because... There's nothing to hide it.
But we don't know who this guy is, right? He's just kind of driving out to this giant temple complex, right? And he goes inside one of the stepped pyramids, and there's torches lit. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? Because it's immediately implied that there's this guy, like in the title card, like there's an archaeologist. This guy's named Dr. Forbes. And he's going out to this place to look for the treasure. So he walks into this stepped pyramid. There's torches lit. I'm like, well, did he travel into the past? I don't know. It doesn't really look like ruins.
He goes through a door that...
It's a perfectly... Okay, look. These are quote-unquote ruins. They are not ruins. It's perfectly functional. There's nothing at all degraded about this. It looks like a set. It does not look like ruins. It looks like the builders had just left. There's torches lit. He walks immediately up to a treasure chest, opens it, and it's filled with jewels. And I'm like, well, there's the movie. The end. The professor has now found the goddamn jewels.
But it turns out he found it 5 years before.
Oh, jeez. This movie. Then we see Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent of Aztec lore.
In dark.
And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. That's the way I've always pronounced it. Again, I apologize, but that's how I will pronounce it in this review, is Quetzalcoatl. We see Quetzalcoatl. He's behind bars, and Forbes is this guy, and he tells the monster that now that he controls the treasure of Montezuma, that Quetzalcoatl must serve him. Okay, fine, all right. So we've already changed the point of this movie. It seemed like it might be like this professor is going to search for the jewels and have to fight Quetzalcoatl at some point, which might have been actually an interesting movie. Like, hey, there's this feathered serpent demon. It
was interesting if it played out right to use something, but there was just always these...
There's nothing in this movie.
He uses the feathers.
Yeah.
And we find out later on that the first feather he ever...
Yeah.
He gave it to his wife. And that's how he realized that Quetzalcoatl would not allow his beautiful little feathers to be used by anyone.
Yeah, so he attacks anyone. The professor knows that Quetzalcoatl will attack anyone holding a feather. He won't take the feather back.
No, he does.
No, he does not. Because the feathers were found in dead people's hands. Quetzalcoatl just kills and then leaves the feathers. His beautiful feathers, which actually look like utter trash. Quetzalcoatl the god. I'm not insulting you, Quetzalcoatl. I'm insulting this movie's Quetzalcoatl. All right. Anyway. Mary, Forbes' daughter, walks in to see a man who writes articles.
Stepdaughter, from what I understand.
I thought it was daughter, just straight up daughter. Who is she played by? I don't know. It does not matter. I think it's Hope Kramer. Hope Kramer. She's talking to a guy named Dr. Lambert, and she says that her father's obsessed with the Aztecs and that he's been looking for the treasure for years. So Forbes just kind of walks in out of nowhere and confronts his daughter and Lambert, and he purposely drops a Quetzalcoatl feather. This is immediately found by his daughter, and Lambert freaks out because this is a very rare feather that's only been found clutched in the hands of dead Spaniards during Cortez's BS, where he kills a ton of native peoples. So the daughter confronts Forbes, tells him that she had found the feather. He looked worried because, remember, we as viewers know more than the characters all do, including Dr. Forbes, because we're kind of seeing from the all-present eye. And that's what makes this movie's mystery just kind of pointless, especially when they keep going over it and we know more than they do.
Yeah, it would have been better as a mystery.
It would have been totally better as a mystery. Just to have Forbes be kind of this off-putting scientist that, yeah, he's just obsessed with his work, but right away we know he's the villain and exactly what he's doing. Anyway, we're obviously reviewing this while we're talking about the plot. I'm sorry. He looks worried. She tells him that Lambert thinks that it came from a prehistoric monster. Forbes goes back to the ruins, lets Quetzalcoatl out. It flies towards Lambert in his car as he approaches the temple. It attacks him
and
outside of the car and drains him of blood like a vampire. Newspapers all tell the death of Lambert, and it is mysterious. And now we get into this strange... This is the end of Act 1. Act 2 are newspaper people and radio reporters that do mystery shows out of California or something like that, reiterating absolutely every detail that we have just gone through in the past 15 minutes. But here's the thing. They take far longer doing it than what they already showed. Okay? So maybe 12, 15 minutes in the movie, we've already seen Act 1. They have to take about 20, 25 minutes going through everything that we've already seen, re-explaining it.
So the whole part where Professor Forbes goes to the thing should not have been even actually shown.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, if you take out the stuff that literally doesn't matter or works against the movie, this is maybe 20 minutes worth of show. It's obscene. And
then there's this. The one part that I'm going to put that shouldn't have been in it was the radio owner or head of the radio station keep on going, oh, he's going to find Montezuma's treasure. I want it. Tell him I get a percentage of that.
The radio people are dicks all the way through this because they literally set up a guy as a patsy to go out with like a dowsing device, a gold dowsing device that they know isn't going to work because they assume Forbes is going to try to kill this guy. This guy finds a feather. The radio guy is like, oh, look, this feather just got found. I know that's how Forbes is killing people, so why don't you go hide in this cave? God, this movie. And this person's a total patsy. Like, he could have just been killed. As far as the radio guy knows, Forbes is just out there strangling people or like cutting their necks and draining them of blood. Not that it's an actual Quetzalcoatl. No one thinks it's a real Quetzalcoatl up until the point they see Quetzalcoatl.
But there's something strange about it. There's no blood on the ground.
Yeah, but Forbes is acting cagey all the way through this. Every time the police talk to him or the reporters talk to him.
The reporter is Richard Thorpe's.
Oh, God, yeah, I guess so, sure. And they're broadcasting from this guy, this Thorpe guy, is broadcasting from the ruin, right? At one point,
and at one point he says something that you just go, "Well, that
solves the mystery." Well, no, that warns. He says like, "I know exactly what is going on and who is doing this, but I won't say who it is, so they won't be warned." And then it flashes to Forbes, literally listening to the radio, smiles and shuts it off because you just warned him, you dick.
Oh, and the sheriff dies because he comes out and
the whole last act is just me saying people die for no damn good reason, including Forbes, who is the biggest idiot of them all.
Yes, that one I was like, all he had to do was release the fire.
Well, yeah, he has a feather in his hand, a Quetzalcoatl feather that he knows Quetzalcoatl will hunt down and kill him with, and he refuses to drop it. He just runs and lets
into the bushes, which is funny.
And then Quetzalcoatl kills him. Surprise!
And then he gets shot. The Quetzalcoatl gets shot.
Oh yeah, and then it's dead. The end. You killed a god. Good job, radio reporter guy. I'm sure that there's another freaking Aztec god that will come down next year during like a solar eclipse and wreck your ass for what you just did to Quetzalcoatl. The end. I'm like, seriously, this at least half of this movie is entirely pointless or goes against the premise of the movie. It's aggravating. It's aggravatingly bad.
Well, you're getting aggressive.
I'm getting aggressive about it. Okay, Darlene, there are things that work in this movie, and we are all about trying to be positive about something with these movies, because these movies should bring a little bit of joy and a smile to your face. So what worked in this movie, Darlene? Because I can even think of things that worked. It's not as bad as the propaganda movies we've watched. Again,
I like the flying Quetzalcoatl.
The flying Quetzalcoatl is great. It looks fun.
I don't like the attacking Quetzalcoatl because it looked like a kite with feathers on it.
Yeah, but the flying Quetzalcoatl was pretty cool. Yeah, okay. It's well lit. I can tell what's going on, and it's not well lit. It's not well lit with the cave, so they don't show Quetzalcoatl. But that is smart.
That's smart, but
It's smart. There are things that work. Do I think that George Zucco did a good job acting? No. I don't think anybody did a good job acting in this, actually. There are literally only two things I can say about this movie that's good. The Quetzalcoatl that's flying around looks okay. Looks good. And that the movie is well lit when it needs to be and poorly lit when it needs to be. Everything else in this movie I thought was either okay, or bad. What were the worst things now? We agree on the top two things. Like
I think, on my opinion, the worst thing is the one that I talked about, is these scenes actually repeating. Not like your case. The first one of yours would be repeating the same information over again. Mine was that we got to see the same footage
repeated,
and there was two of them, and they repeated 3 times or more.
Maybe I should give credit where credit's due. Maybe I should actually add something else that works, thinking about this. Unlike many films, I actually remember the characters' names. Dr. Forbes, Mary Forbes, Thornton, Thorpe, I'm sorry. And so I guess I don't. But Lambert, the other doctor that was killed, I actually do remember these characters' names.
Lambert you remember because the reporter, which is what I always called him.
He repeated himself many times.
He repeated Lambert.
Over and over.
Lambert.
And Forbes was easy to remember because it was always Dr. Forbes and Mary Forbes. And you realize, okay, they're doctor and daughter. I get it. Unlike
the sheriff,
movies,
I couldn't tell you who he was besides the sheriff. And he come in the black car, and the professor had a white one or light colored one.
I can't even tell if they reused cars. They might have, and that's fine if they did. I'm not going to ding the movie for that. But man, this movie, I'll give credit where credit's due. I'm not going to say it works, but I should praise the movie for at least having characters that we know the names of, which is different than many of the films we've watched recently. Right?
But I would say for the 1940s, it would be...
Darlene, 1946. Come on, there are far better movies. Better movies.
It's after the war. I was thinking it was during the war, but that's not the case. I mean, it's after the war.
Even during the war, where you have people just trying to make films that are propaganda, you still have movies coming out of Universal which are stunning. I mean, yeah, that's probably a bad example to try to compare to some of the Wolfman movies.
Well, this is a company that we've never even heard of.
I have. PRC's garbage company. It's kind of like Roger Corman in a lot of ways. But here's the thing. A garbage company doesn't necessarily mean garbage movies. It doesn't.
Who's the writer for this?
The writer for this, let's look, is John T. Neville. And John T. Neville, did he write anything worth... no. He wrote The Flying Serpent in 1946.
The Bat Devil.
It looks like all of his stuff was written between 1927 and 1946, which this was the last one. But it looks like mainly he wrote a lot of Westerns. Revenge at Monte Carlo, Sundown Rider,
Outlaw Guns,
Ivory Handled Gun,
Ticket to a Crime.
I mean, yeah.
What the hell is that?
Well, I'm not going to look it up while we're reviewing the movie, Darlene. But yeah, Devil Bats. You remember you said that it was kind of redone by... Anyway. I did not like this movie. Mainly because I could walk out of the room for about half of it and not miss anything. I'm going to be honest. I didn't.
And it's only an hour. It's less than an hour.
It's less than an hour. I could have walked out for half of this movie and not missed a thing. And even the parts that I might have missed something would have been blatantly obvious to understand with the scenes that continually kind of repeated themselves about information.
Yeah, it made you feel like you were in a Teletubbies.
Yeah, it was like, oh, we're just going to repeat this again for people that have only 2 brain cells to rub together. Okay, look, this boggles me on Internet Movie Database. which we
It's
should
got a
not.
4
It's got a 4.8 out of 10. How? Is this the worst movie we've ever watched?
No.
Absolutely not. This is not a 4.8.
Well, what would you give it out of 10?
Out of 10?
Yes, because
2.
this right here is the best part.
Oh, yeah, we're watching the trailer. 2. 2 out of 10. Why? Again, it is a 59-minute movie where half of it is totally pointless. Totally pointless. The acting does not stand out. It has one memorable thing in it, and that's only barely memorable, and that's the flying Quetzalcoatl. Everything else is entirely forgettable. I'm not going to remember in 1 month's time, Darlene. I might not even remember the characters' names. Where you're going to go, hey, Flying Serpent, who is the archaeologist's name? I'll go, I have no idea. Does it matter? Not really, because they're not really there's no characters in this either. Yeah, there's people that have names, but there's no characters.
Oh, the trailer is just like a lot of our movies that we get today, where everything that's good about it is shown in the trailer.
Darlene is watching the trailer as we're talking here. So, is there anything else we want to say? I mean, this review is actually fairly short.
It should be because it's short.
Okay,
film.
so here, we don't recommend it, right?
No, we don't.
It's not good.
No, I don't think
it's a strong not recommendation.
Yes.
2 out of 10. Darlene, out of 10. What do you think?
I would have given it maybe a 3.
3? Okay. How would you make this better?
I already said the first part, I would make it a real mystery.
Okay.
I wouldn't show that Forbes is dropping these feathers.
Yeah.
I would make it a creature where you're going, oh my God, there's this creature.
Now, can I add one part into this so far? Because I'm with you totally. It's a kaiju movie. Quetzalcoatl should be a giant monster like Rodan, but a giant feathered serpent, a proper representation of Quetzalcoatl, like a feathered dragon. Okay, this is a mystical kaiju-like creature. Okay, that maybe we even have like an old like Aztec group that has like risen it from the dead or like brought it back.
And you'd have to give back whatever.
Yeah, Darlene, there are 6 feathers. Because in this movie, they say like only 3 of these feathers have been found. Maybe that there's 3 feathers, and all it needs is to get its feathers back, and it can rest again or something like that.
And take the gold back to.
Even the gold is meaningless. It just wants its feathers, right? Yeah, maybe take the gold back to like appease it for the time it's spent like looking for its feathers. But that would have been a much more interesting movie. Here's this giant monster that just kind of comes out of the sky. Maybe it even talks because it's an Aztec god.
But it would talk in a language we would know.
Talking like old, whatever. See, I don't know much about the Aztecs except for like some basic random stuff. So I don't know.
I don't know if we even know.
No, I mean Quetzalcoatl. It is a god. Quetzalcoatl will just talk in whatever language it wants to talk in because it's a god. I didn't know if she was going to be a she. I thought she was a he. It's whatever it wants to be, Anyway, that would be really cool, right? And then you have like this globe-trotting adventure that goes between like Southwest America, Mexico, and Spain, maybe. Because of Cortez bringing some of the feathers back or
Mexico.
Something. Like I said, Southwest America, Mexico, and then Spain, Portugal, and then maybe like one of the feathers is in the Vatican. Like in the Vatican Special Archives. And you could have like this whole globetrotting thing where Quetzalcoatl's following the archaeologist / radio guy. Like they're just keeping ahead of him. Or something like that. Trying to.
They're trying to, because that would be what is happening is trying to keep a...
Quetzalcoatl's pissed. He's pissed, and he's looking for the feathers. And the only thing that's stopping him is keeping ahead of him so he doesn't like settle down.
But that ain't the movie.
City. Yeah, I know that. What I'm trying to say is there are a lot of really cool things you could do with an idea about a Quetzalcoatl. Okay, about these like feathers, about like this old Aztec gold, about this legend of Montezuma's gold and Cortez seeking it out. There's a lot of stories that you could tell that would be actually kind of a cool sci-fi horror fantasy type thing. Okay? This movie does none of them. None of them. It does what it does poorly, in fact.
Okay. We already stated that. So we're almost on to 30 minutes and this thing's only 59. So I think that we need to let them go because this is not
it's not a good movie. I'm sorry for being so negative on it. It really isn't that good, and I'm surprised at the rating that it has.
I guess I've got to see some more of these bad movies by
the old
this
PRC
or whatever it is to grade this worthy of, because we look at things that are, what's that company in the 90s that did $4 million for...
Are you talking about Asylum films?
Asylum films. We look at Asylum films per Asylum films.
No, I judge Asylum films in the same way that I judge most B movies.
But we excuse it because it's Asylum.
No, we don't. I say there are certain, there are always certain aspects to a B movie that it needs to succeed at, regardless of the year that it is made in or its budget. Is it telling a story that is at least interesting, that's going to entertain you? It doesn't matter if that story is dumb or smart. Is it an entertaining story? Sometimes a movie doesn't succeed even at that. Okay, and I firmly believe that Flying Serpent is not an entertaining story because it drags on and on and on doing nothing. But most Asylum films, as poorly written, edited, and all that as they are, they're telling an interesting story or something that will keep you entertained.
Or try to.
Anyway, we'll leave it at that, folks. I don't know what we're going to watch next. It's 1:34. I'm really wanting to do another Frankenstein movie because we have tons of Frankenstein movies. I'm really wanting to do another Hammer horror, but I might save the Hammer horror for 1:35.
But we need to get into something in the 50s or 60s back.
Oh, so yeah, well, 1:35, how about we do another Hammer from the 50s or 60s then?
Maybe.
We don't know. We always are trying to keep ourselves a little open to ideas that pop up in the moment. So thank you for listening, folks. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Darlene. Good evening.
And keep watching the skies.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.